Oh my goodness, I heard Birch Aquarium is having a special Palytoxin exhibit.
Oh my god, that's perfect. Let's get some tickets.
When are you free?
Maybe after my midterm.
Okay, let's get our dodo friend to help plan the trip.
And so, the two friends made it safely through the destination. First stop on the tour is the legend behind this mysterious toxin. This story starts with an ancient legend from Hawaii. There was once a small fishing village in the island of Maui near the Hana harbor. Villagers had noticed that the fishermen that had gone out daily had slowly begun disappearing. Desperately seeking for answers, the villagers blamed the reclusive hunchback living in the cliff above. The villagers then confronted the recluse, storming the ridge and unmasking the figure. They revealed rows of teeth within a large mouth. The villagers caught the shark god, who had luster for flesh, and they had suspected correctly, burning the god to ashes. His ashes were then scattered into a tide pool, but the evil had still remained. The evil had transformed the tide pool into a toxic waste, growing brown corals along its walls. These limu had dangerous consequences, killing any victim pricked by the poison. Thus, the growth in the tide pool came to be known as limu makahana, or the seaweed of death from Hana. Today, however, this seaweed of death is known as Palithoa toxica, a species of zoanthid coral. Zoanthids are under the Anthozoa class of the Cnidaria phylum. Thus, Palithoa are distantly related to the aquatic invertebrates such as jellyfish. Many Palithoa are brownish, with some varieties being green. They are described as slimy and made of a hardened material to strengthen themselves. These zoanthids have two rows of tentacles and typically feed off of photosynthetic dinoflagellates known as zooxanthellae, which form a symbiotic relationship. Without these dinoflagellates, the coral is bleached and dies because of how valuable these microorganisms are. What makes this species of zoanthid and a few other marine species special is the toxin they produce known as palytoxin. This toxin occurs in tropical waters where Palithoa corals and Ostripus dinoflagellates typically thrive in. There's also been a proposed theory that the bacteria occurring in these organisms produce the toxin, although more research is needed. This toxin, however, is becoming a problem for aquarium hobbyists, but more on that later. Emily will now kick off the chemical information.
Now we get to learn about the chemical information that makes palytoxin unique. Palytoxin belongs to a class of marine biotoxins called PTLX. Structurally, it has a formula of C129, H223, and 3O54. Structural key characteristics include 2 amine groups, 40 hydroxyl groups, and some ketones. There are 64 chiral centers, which just means that there's 64 molecular groups with 4 different atoms attached to it. Palytoxin works by attacking sodium-potassium pumps that line our cells. Sodium-potassium pumps are responsible for maintaining an ionic gradient inside of our cells, regulating cell size, and of course, molecular transportation. Think of the sodium-potassium pumps as gates that allow access into the cell for different molecules. And what palytoxin does is it bypasses the pump and forces it to remain open. This leads to the loss of the ionic gradient in the cell membrane, size irregularity, and unchecked molecule transportation into the cell. This destabilizing effect leads to cell death.
Now, let us move on to our scientific exhibit and discuss how such a molecule was ever constructed by human hand. One of the preeminent molecular explorers of our time, the late Yoshito Kishi, dedicated almost a decade of his life pursuing the highest summits of organic chemistry. What he found at the top was the monstrous palytoxin, the Mount Everest of photosynthesis. And without further ado, let us dissect the anatomy of this strange beast. The Kishi lab assembled this molecule piece by piece from smaller precursors over the course of 7 years, starting in 1982. What you see before you are the first 4 fragments, which were combined together to form the mouth of palytoxin, using metal-catalyzed cross-couplings and Wittig reactions. These next 4 fragments you see here were conjugated together to form the head of palytoxin. And now, with both the mouth and the head constructed, there's only one thing left to do, and that is to group these together into a massive molecule, the fully protected palytoxin carboxylic acid. Now, the next step was to remove all of these protecting groups, which has to be done carefully and in a controlled manner, which she was able to accomplish to form the palytoxin carboxylic acid, fully free of protecting groups. However, this isn't the end of the story because this isn't the complete structure of palytoxin. The last fragment missing is the nose, which was installed by an amide coupling reaction followed by a selenium oxide elimination, bringing to life the true palytoxin. Such is palytoxin's power that it was able to command the attention of the world's best chemists for over 12 years. And now Holdon will demonstrate the real-world dangers of palytoxin.
My name is Holdon. I will be one of your tour guides today. We will be going over palytoxin poisoning, symptoms, and treatment. Palytoxin is a cytotoxin produced by two genera of the zoanthic corals, Polythoa and Zoanthus. Animal studies in mice have shown an LD50 of as low as 33 nanograms per kilogram, meaning once it gets inside your body, it kills you very efficiently. It also makes it the second most toxic non-protein substance known to man. My colleague Emily will or may have already gone over why this is the case. If you go around the interactive parts of our exhibit, you might see these signs. They indicate zoas are present there. You might ask, why do we have zoas in interactive parts of our exhibit? I have no idea. I just work here. Some common symptoms of palytoxin poisoning include muscle fatigue and or aches, kidney failure, fever, uncontrollable vomiting, numbness in the lower back and or extremities, and a characteristic bitter or metallic taste. Some rarer symptoms include black urine, cyanosis, bradycardia, and delirium. One such example occurred between a man and his pregnant wife back in 2012. He was using hot water and a knife to cut away zoa polyps in his home aquarium, essentially releasing palytoxin into the air, which they breathed in for a series of hours, after which they started experiencing the symptoms that I mentioned previously. They were admitted to the hospital under intensive care for about a week, and eventually they were released. The man experienced prolonged pulmonary issues for about 2 years, and the wife ended up actually giving birth to their son 3 months early. Other than that, they made a full recovery. The other examples I wanted to mention occurred in the 1980s, in which 2 Filipino men in the southern Negros Oriental province of the Philippines ate this crab right here pictured. It's the mosaic reef crab, also called the Lophozozymus pictor. They started experiencing symptoms minutes after consuming the crab, and they ended up dying 3 and 10 hours later respectively, experiencing very uncomfortable deaths. So if you find yourself in the Philippines at a restaurant and you see a crab coming out like it has a skin condition, don't eat it. Go with the tenders. In terms of treatment, if you get palytoxin on your skin and or clothes, you can soak either in household bleach for about 30 minutes and you're good. If you get it inside your body, there is a 3-step process you can follow. Buy a Bible, start praying, and then do whatever you want for the rest of your life. Maybe go ask your crush out or something. It is speculated that a vasodilator can be injected directly into the heart of an affected person to prevent the cardiac arrest from ever occurring. There are 3 issues with this. It's unreliable, it must be done immediately after the poisoning, and if I could do it, I'd be getting paid a lot more. It's a skill issue, I know. Lastly, in terms of alternative applications of palytoxin, it can be used as an anti-cancer agent for Ehrlich ascites tumors, as well as P388 lymphocytic leukemia. It can act as an inhibitor of calcium ATPase enzymes, as well as a stimulator and or toxic inhibitor of bone resorption processes in the body depending on its concentration. This compound is still undergoing research to find new applications, but for now, that's all I wanted to relay to you guys. Any questions? No? Thank God.